Of the 15 people with ties to Maine who were charged in connection with the January 6th insurrection, most pleaded guilty and have already served their sentences, while 3 were still awaiting trial.
3 others, Kyle Fitzsimons of Lebanon, Christopher Moorer of Biddeford, and Matthew Brackley of Waldoboro, were in prison serving their sentences. Today, those men spent their first full day of freedom after President Trump's blanket pardon.
And just this afternoon, one of them spoke with our Donovan Lynch about his pardon, his release, and of course that fateful day 4 years ago. Donovan joins us. Hi.
Yeah, Brian and Amanda. Now, most of the January 6ers from Maine that federal officials went after were convicted of lesser charges like trespassing in a government building and damaging property. Matthew Brackley, like Kyle Fitzsimons and Christopher Moorer, was charged with assaulting a police officer. And while he says he regrets his actions at the Capitol, he's still holding on to some core beliefs from that day.
It is not a place where people are being rehabilitated, I'll tell you that.
On Monday, Matthew Brackley was in federal prison when the news broke.
The lieutenant called us out and said, President Trump's getting you guys out of here.
Now he's back at his electrical business in West Bath. His release, part of a sweeping pardon by President Trump of those involved in the January 6th Capitol riot.
I followed not just the politician, but the man. And I was very convinced that he was going to come through and pardon us.
Of the roughly 1,500 people granted clemency, Brackley is part of a smaller group convicted of violent crimes against law enforcement.
I was upset in that moment, and so I just turned to the crowd behind me and I said, let's go. And I raised my arms up like this and I just walked through those officers. I didn't shove them or hit them or anything, but.
Federal prosecutors say Brackley pushed through the officers, leading a crowd into the hallway towards the U.S. Senate chamber. They also say he asked for the location of then Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi's office. After pleading guilty to the assault, a judge sentenced Brackley to 15 months in prison.
I gravely regret the fact that I pushed past those officers, right? On paper, that is assault, and I did do it, and I wish that I hadn't.
Is your remorse and regret because of the consequences, or is it because of the actual action itself?
It's because of the action itself, and straight up because the action itself was very unproductive.
But as a free man, this former candidate for state senate's motivation for storming the Capitol remains unchanged.
People protested what was wrong, right? I believe that election was stolen. And when an election is stolen, it's not right. That's people that steal elections are evil people.
In truth, former President Joe Biden won the 2020 election. Brackley also blames the violent outcome of January 6th in part on police at the Capitol, where around 140 officers were injured.
Just because somebody puts on a uniform doesn't make them a good person. It doesn't mean that every action that they do is correct. I believe that law enforcement that day, I believe they started a lot of the violence that happened.
And the decision to pardon people like Brackley is drawing some scrutiny, notably from Republican Senator Susan Collins. She said she does not support pardons given to people who engaged in violence on January 6th. Now, put together with former President Biden's decision to preemptively pardon members of his own family in the last moments in office, Collins actually calls this, quote, a terrible week for our justice system. Brian and Amanda?
Donovan Lynch with a big story from this week. Donovan, thank you.
Thank you.